now. I make about a dozen, maybe 15 props a year. And yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it. I also don't have any real formal training in any of this. I just picked it up as I go along. I've been pretty fortunate that I've picked it up pretty quickly. But thanks to the internet, it's pretty easy to do that. So some of the stuff up here is mine, some of it's Bill's. We're going to kind of go, we both have a different way about approaching how we start a build and the various ways that we go through our processes when going from start to finish. So we're going to go over, Bill's going to go over his, I'm going to go over mine. Hopefully this will help you guys out next time you want to make something for a convention or just to explain all.
So first off, this is going to be fairly informal. There's not too many of us in here. So if y'all have any questions, just throw up your hands. We'll stop. I guess to kind of start, the best thing about starting any project is knowing your materials. You really need to have an idea of what you're going to be working with, what the characteristics of each materials are, and really get to know them before you start on your project, before you start throwing a lot of money into it and buying, $100 worth of materials, and then realizing, oh crap, this stuff doesn't really work for my needs. To start off, one of the best materials I love to work with is a plastic called Sintra. It comes in sheets.
Yeah.
Comes in sheets, usually about 2 millimeters thick, between 2 millimeters and 6 millimeters thick, so you can get up to like ½ inch thickness. It's semi-flexible. The great thing about this stuff, it's a PVC foam material, which means that it's really porous on the microscopic level. It takes paint, it takes glue, it takes everything really, really well. The best thing about it is that if you heat it up, say boil it in a lobster pot or you use a heat gun on it, you can bend it and you can get really complex curves and bends on it. The way we typically go about using this stuff is we'll make get a piece of paper or construction paper. Whatever shape we can make in paper, you can't make a ball out of paper, it'll crumble. But if you make those unidirectional bends, if you do that with the original piece of poster board or whatever, you can do the same thing in Sintra once you heat it up. It has the exact same characteristics. Again, you can't do two directions. You can't make a ball, and you can't make anything that's like a helmet. But you can make that single bend on it. And again, once it cools down, it'll maintain that same shape for you. The nice thing about Sintra,
Try and pull up an example, by the way. I've got a lot of pictures here, so.
The nice thing about Sintra is that if you glue it together using super glue, the liquid, crappiest super glue you can find, nothing gel, nothing hot glue, really crappy 25 cents a pop super glue. It'll actually melt some of the Sintra together, and you can make a seamless shape. This is all originally Sintra. Originally one solid sheet of Sintra. I just heat formed it, bend it down, sanded it smooth, and put lots of super glue in there. Nice thing is, if you sand it while it's wet, all those little sanding particles sticks into the crack where the glue is and makes it perfectly smooth. The seam will disappear. Then you just need to paint it and wear it.
That's an example of what Bill's talking about there. The stock on the end of this rifle, all the thick white pieces you're seeing are all Sintra that have just been heated with the heat gun, wrapped to shape, and then here. I had to section it in a couple places. I didn't have sheets that large, but it shows you an example of how you can get that sort of curvature with it. Again, it's what's called one directional. A compound curve is something that, like a ball or a dome like these here, you're not going to be able to get that with that material without really boiling the crap out of it before.
Yeah, even then, it's really just not what it's meant for. When it comes to building things that are more curved, that's when you have to start getting into casting, and I guess we'll probably cover that in the next panel at 5:30 a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a little bit, I'd say, somewhat more advanced technique. We've got another panel at 5:30, which is for advanced armor making. We can cover resin casting and that sort of thing there. Bill's favorite thing is to use the Sintra. This is mine. This is extruded polystyrene foam. Pink foam, if you get it at Lowe's, it's blue foam.
Insulation foam.
Insulation foam. A sheet of this that's 4 foot by 8 foot is about $4. If you get it 2 inch thick, it's about $12. And you can build a lot of stuff out of this. This here, my Thomas helmet from Daft Punk, started off as just blocks of insulation. It's really good as sort of a reductive material. You build up with one big shape and then you gradually form it down, and then you can build a material on top of it. A thing that's kind of bad about it is it hates just about any type of glue or solvent or paint. If you spray paint it, it's going to dissolve. If you put certain types of resin on it, it'll dissolve. So you have to
always test your products before you put it all in, and you're looking at a week's worth of work melted on your table.
Right, and I mean that
we've done it. We know.
Yeah, it happens a lot. And this is a piece that I made. One of my first props actually, which was constructed entirely out of insulation foam. That's Midna's helmet from Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Before I really knew what the hell I was doing, I tried making that. And the bottom piece that wraps around the head is something I heated up with this stuff and tried to bend it to shape. That would have been better done in Sintra. I didn't know that at the time, so I was breathing in really bad fumes. Something else we should note is that you might not need to go as crazy as Bill's mask here, which is for people that work at Chernobyl. But it is a good idea to wear a respirator whenever you're working with these types of materials. This is a little bit overkill. You can't go too much, but depending, I don't know.
If you're working with Bondo, you notice whenever you're sanding the stuff down, the stuff gets dusty. Anything that you're sanding, all these plastic particles, gets dust, gets everywhere. It's going to get in your lungs. It might not hurt you that much now, although you might be a little wheezy. It will hurt you later on. Trust us. We know so many guys who've been in the industry who've done so many projects, they have to just stop the craft altogether because their lungs can't take it, their bodies can't take it. They have to literally stop for medical reasons.
Yeah, perfect example of that is my other favorite material. This is MDF, medium density fiberboard. Again, Home Depot, really cheap, really easy to use.
Really heavy.
Sands like butter. Actually butter doesn't sand very well. It sands like something that sands really well. This is the problem is that there's an agent in this that they use to keep it from molding and to keep it in one shape. It's formaldehyde. If you're ever sanding this, you'll get formaldehyde dust in the lungs if you're not wearing a respirator. This is probably one of the more deadly materials to breathe in that we have up here. So that I didn't know. When I kind of first got into this, I was just screaming around. I didn't wear a mask or respirator. I was working on one project one day. It was a master's work for Zelda. And I'd gotten done sanding one of these pieces, a few hours out there, not wearing a respirator or anything. When I came inside, I was coughing this sort of tan dust. And it didn't leave my throat for about a week. And that probably cost me more than I'd like to think about. But respirator, safety goggles.
Now, when it comes to level stuff, this one will cost you closer to like $90 because it's a full face. You can get a half face, which just does your nose and mouth, and we'll still have the canisters on here that'll do full particulate, take out all the stuff in the air. And that's up to like 99, 100%. So that's great, but it's still really expensive. You're talking about at least $30 or something like that. For just day-to-day sanding, if it's just wood or some stuff that's really not that bad for you, relatively speaking, you can use a lot of the just those white things like she's wearing there, similar. Never mind, that's part of her handkerchief. All right.
It's not a paper mask.
All right, so you can get the paper mask. Don't get the M95s. They only take up 95% of the particulate. They're not very thick. They're literally paper thin. You want to get the thickest ones you can. The thicker the better, and just trust some of this. It will help you a lot in the long run.
You want to take the next material? Okay, I use it a lot.
No,
Styrene. Take that one. All right. Styrene plastic is another. This is one of my favorites. I'm not really using this one, but apparently he doesn't. I use this for just about everything. And I'll get into my build process a little bit later on. When I build something, I kind of break things down into smaller shapes. So think about a rifle, kind of like this one down here. And if you look at the piece as a whole, it gets to be kind of complex. You've got these curved shapes, lots of sort of extrusions, points that stick off of it. And when you start to break it down and think that these little pieces here are just pieces of styrene glued on top, and that all of these little pieces are the same thing, little minute details like that are really good to work with a thin, flexible material like this. Styrene is a little bit more difficult to come by. You can buy stuff at Home Depot, which is like the for sale signs. I get all of mine scrap from a local sign shop. I just buy their off-cast cheap crap.
That's actually a really good point. Is that one of the great things I love about Sintra, I've never once paid for it. So you can go to your local sign shop, say, hey, I'm a poor college student, I'm working on a little art project or something. Do you have any scraps of Sintra or PVC foams? Sintra is the name brand. They'll most likely say, yes, I do. I'm about to throw out this giant pile. Here's a stockpile for you. And usually it's stuff, just little pieces like this. You can get bigger or smaller depending on where you go. Just hit up all your different sign shops, like fast signs around your house, again and again, and they'll keep restocking and having little scraps like this.
What did you say?
Huh?
How old am I?
What?
Where did you say you could get that?
Local sign shops, anywhere that does your, high school graduation banners. Fast signs is a really popular one around Atlanta. just walk in, be nice, smile and be friendly, and say, hey, do you have any extras? They will say, yes, we do.
Yeah. They typically have a lot of stuff on their sort of cutting board floor that they can't use because it's too small.
Yeah, it's too small for what they can do. They can't make a sign out of this, so they'll give you all the extra scraps. And typically, it comes in about 2 millimeters thick. And again, if you need it thicker, just laminate them together with glue, and you'll be set.
Do we want to talk about materials?
Uh,
Get into that later.
Yeah, materials we don't use. Hey, there's a great material you don't want to use called friendly plastic. I have most of this left because I only used it once. Friendly plastic is something you can get at Hobby Lobby. It's all these little tiny beads here, just little white plastic beads. You put them in hot water and they turn clear. It's a lot like working with super glue, but a lower melting temperature. You get this stuff out, it's really gunky and thick.
What did I say? Super glue.
That one.
I'd love to see you melt super glue. That'd be good. then you'd need that respirator.
So you get it, and it's this really gunky, clear stuff. You get it out while it's still hot, or in your mold, or you can mold it with your hands. It kind of works. You can't sand it because it'll melt. You can't really paint it well at all, and there's not too much you can do. But it is cheap, and it is a Hobby Lobby. If you need something literally the night before the con, it works, and that's why I got that stuff. Actually, I took a masquerade mask of this, cut it in two, and started just molding it with a whole bunch of friendly plastic before I went out to AX literally the next day. Only problem is if you leave it in a hot car, it'll melt. If you're in the sun for a long photo shoot, it'll melt. It'll get soft. If anybody bump it into you, it will cause some damage. You can't get it very smooth, and it doesn't take paint very well. This is all just done with acrylics. If I got this wet, it would probably all wash.
Now again, this is something, like we said earlier, we don't necessarily have formal training in this. A lot of this is just things that we've learned along the way. If there's a process that works for you, that's what's best. Like a friend of mine who's a really great photographer, and he likes to say that the best camera you have is the one you have with you. And in my opinion, the best thing that you can do is what you know how to do. By default, I start with these two materials for almost anything, and then I eventually go back to this. There's better ways to do it. And there's other people's ways to do it. This is epoxy stone. We'll get into that. But yeah, there's always another way that you can attempt to make something. Anybody who says you're doing it wrong process-wise is just, they're just being a bit of an elitist on it, because however you get to the end product, provided it's what you wanted, that's the best way to do it. I've got my preferences, Bill has his.
It's just a matter of what you're comfortable with.
Right.
Certain materials, I'm really good at working with them. I can do stuff that Harrison can't do. He does stuff with epoxy sculpt in India that I couldn't do in a million years. So it's just what you can work with, what you're familiar with. So,
Why don't we go over process?
right.
Since we're talking about how different our work is.
Yeah.
You want to start with yours?
Yeah, that's good.
Which one do you want
Well,
to do?
if you want to do a different process, I'll show you how I did the steps.
Well, you can do the gun, and I'll do my gun.
I'll do right way involved.
Yeah, we can show you how Bill does it, then we can show you the right way.
Where do you have it? Well, yeah, but how do you, can I just cycle through? I hold it up.
I don't use computers.
I don't use your crappy ancient math. Okay. So,
Yes.
Was there anything else that are not being materials?
Personally, and I brought a few other things, I don't like using florist's foam. This, okay, there's a lot of other people don't like it. This is crap, I hate it. This is a piece that I've had sitting under my desk for a very long time in my workshop. I just grabbed a bunch of stuff when I left, and the portal gun casings are made out of this. And that took me a long time to get that shininess out of this crap. That is florist foam wrapped in Wonderflex, which is also something I don't like, and then skinned over with a bunch of really high build primer. It was the longest way to get to a finish like that I could possibly imagine these days, and I wouldn't really recommend trying it that way. Problem with this stuff is it doesn't accept glue very well. If you glue down the top layer, what happens is it just rips that top layer off of the hole, and then you're left with nothing underneath. So it's too